There is a solution for that is sponsored by VARC Solutions. VARC Solutions helps small businesses succeed by delivering expert QuickBooks bookkeeping, consulting, quick-base development, and integrated solutions. If you own a small to medium-sized business that uses QuickBooks or QuickBase, the experts at VARC Solutions can help. In business since 1999, with people who care and the knowledge and experience to solve your toughest problems. Visit varcsolutions.com for all your QuickBooks needs. Welcome back to another edition of There's a Solution for That, where we help small businesses succeed by discussing challenging business problems and best-in-class solutions. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be interviewing a very special lady, an amazing lady named Angela Healy, and she is the CEO of Avenue West, and we're going to be talking about the problem or the problems associated with corporate relocations and really what she and her organization are doing to solve that problem. So, Angela, maybe just kind of first off, welcome. Why don't you
Yes,
just kind of
thank you
give
so
our
much for
audience
having me.
a little bit of background on you and how you got started?
Wonderful. Yes. So I didn't wake up one day as a youngster and think, oh, I want to be in relocation, corporate housing. I think most people who stumble upon this industry find themselves in love with it shortly after they stumble upon it. But it's not like when you're little, I want to be a fireman, you know.
Right.
But when I was little, I did want to be in real estate. My parents owned rental property growing up. And I saw them work very hard with that rental property, but be able to put four kids through private college. And so I knew that real estate was a place where I would be able to make my wealth or my fortune growing up. So I always knew I wanted to be in real estate and got my first real estate license in California right out of college in 1995 and haven't really looked back. I was a commercial lender for a period of time, but that just really helped me with the real estate fundamentally, I think, and being able to finance real estate for people. But I did stumble upon corporate housing by accident. I had a rental in California where a company had come and asked me if they could rent the property fully furnished. And I kind of scratched my head and I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. Now, this is back well before Airbnb, well before people had furnished rentals. And decided to make the investment, put the furniture in the property. And then that company ended up continually renting that property from me for a considerable amount of time, I think maybe 3 years, and really saw some great income from that and thought, this, I've got to figure out more about this. And there was an industry associated with it and found out more about it and eventually jumped in with both feet and haven't looked back.
Well, that's awesome. And in fact, your story is not uncommon, right? For entrepreneurs and small, medium-sized companies and business owners, right? Is sometimes you just stumble into things,
Yes.
you know, right time, right place, and paying attention, right, to the needs that are there. So that's
Yeah, because
fantastic. First
sometimes you
off,
find the
congratulations.
best opportunities by accident. Somebody needs this and they're not able to find a solution. And if you can find that solution, maybe you can turn that into a business. So,
Yep,
exactly.
absolutely. And so your organization, your company is called Avenue West, but you're not just like a one place, right? You've got a structure in place. Tell me a little bit about that.
Correct. So we did start in Denver and have had that office since 1999 and realized that what we were doing differently compared to our competition, we can talk a little bit about that in a little bit, um, was a very viable business model in an area where it can be a very risky business dealing with corporate housing. This business model found a way to make it less risky. And so we franchised that business model. And today we are 17 cities across the country, serving over 200 cities.
Wow.
So really grown that. So very happy about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can take a model and replicate it, so it's, you're leveraging your knowledge, your expertise, your processes, your systems, yeah, you've got a higher upside, and also everybody gets to benefit. So that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, so tell me a little bit about maybe some of the trends that you're seeing in corporate relocation. I know personally, I've stayed at Verbos, I've stayed at Airbnbs, I've done the hotels, I've done all those things, but I've not personally experienced, a corporate long-term relocation. So tell us a little bit about some of the trends, especially, with, short term versus medium and long term. I know those are buzzwords, but,
Yeah.
how do you define all those things as well? So talk a little bit more.
Absolutely. So let me start out by defining those terms first. So I think Airbnb and VRBO have turned short-term rentals into a commonplace. Most people know what that is. And long-term unfurnished rentals, that's pretty traditional as well. But this whole midterm rental has come around, and it's turning into a buzzword more recently. But that is traditionally what corporate housing is. So providing people with a fully furnished property on a minimum of 30 days. Traditionally, it's about 100 days, but can be longer. Like I mentioned, I had my one for several years. Um, but corporations are relocating employees, whether to a new city or a new destination, or they're bringing them in on an assignment. So maybe they have, like a traveling nurse has a 99-day assignment where they need to be somewhere for a lengthy period of time. It's not a nightly, but not long enough to do an unfurnished long-term lease. So they're kind of in this midterm realm, no man's land, if you will. But it can be a very profitable business for a property owner. Maybe they had an Airbnb short-term rental and regulations are changing. I mean, so many cities these days are saying, we can't have all these Airbnbs because we're too short of housing. And so they're cracking down on the Airbnbs. And that property owner is suddenly losing their livelihood with regards to this asset that they're renting. And instead of turning it into an unfurnished long-term rental, which may not make as much as they were making before, they could turn it into a midterm rental and rent it through corporate housing. But really what corporations are doing is they are bringing people in on assignment or relocating them, and they're providing them, that employees, some benefits to make that relocation work or hopefully happen successfully. Because when someone is moving across country or to a different city, there are a lot of things to take into consideration, not just where am I going to live short term, but where am I going to live long term? Where are my children going to go to school? What part of the city do I want to live in? Where am I going to go grocery shopping? Where am I going to do my banking? There are so many loose ends that you have to think about to make that relocation successful for that employee. And I don't remember the stat off the top of my head, but a large number of relocations actually fail, and the employee will move back to their old location, whether they leave the company because that old job is no longer available, or whether they end up in a divorce. That's another very common outcome because relocation is very stressful.
I'm
And if
sure.
you only think about the employee and not the whole family unit, you could really be doing a disservice to your employee and may ultimately lose a very talented employee that you thought was so valuable. You may pay upwards of $100,000 to relocate them. So you want that relocation to be as successful as possible.
Right. Wow. I mean, a lot to consider. I mean, I know that like where I live, I actually like live in the North Dallas area, and in our HOA, right, in our homeowners neighborhood, they've started instituting the kind of like the no Airbnb rule effectively, right? And so literally the house next to us has gone through multiple stages. At one point they were a leased, place that you could just lease, and then they did do Airbnb, and then once the HOA started cracking down, I think they reverted back to like a leased property type of scenario. But just in terms of how you guys work with folks, I mean, obviously you're serving corporations, but like, how do you get the properties? Is that like a homeowner raising their house saying, "Hey, you can use my house," or how does that work? or is it
Exactly.
primarily more like commercial townhouses and things like that?
No, so one of the things that Avenue West does differently is we are a real estate agency and we work with individual property owners to bring their properties into our management, into our inventory, and then we rent those properties out to our corporate customers. So we do kind of have two customer bases. We are constantly looking for new owners, new properties, as well as working on getting additional corporations to work with us and rent properties throughout our whole system. So as a property owner, not every property is good for corporate housing. Corporations, they pay top dollar and they are looking for top dollar properties. They really want an A plus property. So what school district are you in? What amenities do you have? Are you close to the business center? They don't want to have their employees commuting a half hour a day. They want them to be close. But then they also want to take the other pieces into consideration. If they are moving with a family, obviously they want to be in the suburbs. They don't want to be right downtown. They want to be in the correct school districts. Or if it's an individual moving, maybe they want to be in that trendy downtown condo tower, or that has all the 24-hour doorman, the workout facility, the pool, all the things that come with kind of single life.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say you
so we
might like if you have kids or not, that makes a big difference.
it does. And and a lot of times our competition is putting the relocating transferee into an apartment complex with rental furniture. Whereas if we can provide them with a townhome or with a house or, with a condo, something that's very different, less transient than an apartment complex. Or maybe it is a home with a yard. Maybe they have a dog coming with them. And it would be nice to, have a place for Fido to, run around in the backyard or play with the kids or have that swing set or, whatever it might be, just providing more space for the transferee. Because that is another thing is if you're used to living in a 3,000 square foot house and suddenly your whole family is shoved into a 1,200 square foot townhome, that's going to be a very different lifestyle than what you were doing back at home and can add the additional stress because the
Yep.
kids are more on top of you, or or your spouse isn't getting the alone time that they need, or whatever it might be to
Right.
help make the situation less stressful or feel more home like it was when you
Yeah.
were back at the other location.
Now, I mean, wow. I mean, so a lot to consider, right? And so, I mean, I'm just thinking of myself. It's like if I was doing a relocation, I would love to downsize and not have a yard, and not and
Well,
not
remember,
have
on
maintenance.
a corporate housing, all of that is taken care of for the relocating
Wow.
person. So if there is a yard, then there is a lawn service that comes in and cuts the lawn, or whatever. I mean, you have to clean up after yourself in terms of throwing away your trash and dog poop or whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
they'll come in and they'll maintain the full property, whether it's in your area, plenty of lawn cutting. Whereas up in Colorado, we also deal with snow removal on the flip
Right.
side. So whatever it might be in the particular area. We have properties in Las Vegas and Arizona that have pools, so they'll come in and they'll service the pool. It's a full service property
Oh,
for
wow.
the occupant.
That's really, really cool. So
Mhm.
like when you work, do you work like directly with like a typically like a specific person at a corporate office and they're the one coordinating with you in terms of the needs, or are you working directly with the person that's moving? How does that typically work?
And it's both. So
Both.
we
Yeah.
start with the person in HR, or the one managing the relocation will tell us that XYZ person, this is their family, here's the introduction, and then we'll work with that individual within the parameters of what the corporation is allowing. So maybe they're approved for a 90-day stay, maybe they're approved for only a 30-day stay if they're a junior level.
Yeah.
So whatever the parameters are put upon from the corporation, then we'll try to match them with the best property option available.
Okay. So basically you're kind of like a match.com
We
for
are.
for
That's a great
companies
one.
and people who
Yes,
are moving, right? That's awesome. Well, so
absolutely.
you touched on this a little bit ago, but I want you maybe to see if you can dive a little bit deeper or explain even more. you mentioned that like a lot of relocations fail.
Yes.
So maybe what are some of those one, two, three bullet points of what would be one of some of the more common reasons why a relocation would fail? And, is it, you know, you talk. What are some of the reasons for that?
Sure. Some of our relocations are international. They might be coming from another country, and this is just a very different culture. And so, how do we assimilate them into something that may feel comfortable or something that they may be used to? Or it could even just be across country. Maybe someone is coming from California and moving to a much smaller city, and they're very used to the hustle and bustle of California.
Right.
And so, really getting to know and understand where they're coming from and what is important to them. Maybe some people are very used to not having any outdoor space. I just really want my gym and my 24-hour doorman. And maybe some people, maybe they come from Colorado where we have tons of outdoor space, and moving into, San Francisco would be very difficult for them because they don't have that nature environment behind them anymore. So, really diving deep with each individual transferee and figuring out what it is that is important and taking into consideration every piece of the move. So,
Yeah.
the transferee, the spouse, the children, the pets, maybe they even have a grandmother coming with them, or some other family members. So how do we make this as seamless as possible? I mean, obviously it's a move. There's no way around it. There's a move. And they're going to be packing up their household goods. They're going to be moving them across the country. They're going to stay in temporary housing until the household goods arrive, or until maybe the household goods have to stay because they're staging the house for sale. And then those goods are going to get packed up while they're not even home, while they're already over here. And how do those get packed up correctly, and make sure nothing gets broken? And then how do they arrive on the back end? There is probably a million details that go into a
Yeah.
relocation, and any one of those little pieces could cause tension or anxiety for the transferee. And that tension and anxiety is what creates the failure.
Yep.
And so every point along the way, if we can make sure that, the pieces are done right, or that, the housing is perfect, or that we considered the school, or, we've done all these things to try to make it as seamless as possible. And we even do things like we had one child arrive, and they happened to arrive on the child's birthday, which was probably a terrible birthday present for that child. But, we put a little cake and balloons, and, try to make it so when they arrived, it was like, oh, wow, and sometimes we do things for the pets, maybe a little pet bed, and, a bowl and some little treats for the dogs. We just try to think of just different things that can make it so when they walk in the door, it's not an overwhelming, oh, what am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
It's lovely when they walk in. That first impression is so important.
Well, and just like buying and selling a new house, I get there
Yes.
so many details. I mean, I've got to assume you and everybody that works in your organization has got to be a master of details, because that
Mhm.
is mind blowing in terms of, yeah, just all the things that you've got to get right. I know. I mean, being in a service based business, we're in a service based business. You're in a service based business. A lot of, at least from my experience, a lot of the happy or sad moments with a client is always at some level based on their assumptions that were maybe not communicated, or maybe we didn't ask, or so they show up, they walk in, and suddenly they're like, oh, this is modern furniture. I hate modern furniture. I like, antique homey, or farm ranch type of. So I mean, I can just imagine, when Sharon and I, my wife, when we go on vacation, we'll look at, a handful of hotels, and just, we're looking at pictures, and she's like, no, 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 ooh, maybe, right? And if you aren't even having that opportunity, just imagine you're showing up and it's like, this is not my style. I don't like this, right? I don't want to feel this way for the next 90 days. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
because it's
mean,
not just a hotel for 1 or 2 nights. It's 90 days is a long time. And yeah, I'm a stickler on the bed. How to is the bed the right soft, hard, what is it? And it's very hard to get beds that meet everyone's needs. And
Yep.
so every time I go where I'm staying in a property, I'm always like, okay, tell me about the bed and the mattress and that's something that's very important to me. So.
That's awesome. Well, so tell me about the cost, right? So I know, I mean, not necessarily the cost of like what you guys do, but just in general, most businesses that are thriving, they're either just providing an exceptional value and service, right, or they're doing things differently, whatever. But at some level, right, you're also trying to save money, make it less expensive than if somebody was trying to do it themselves. So, what are some of the costs that people have to be aware of when they're doing a relocation?
Yeah, so the nice thing about our properties and one of the benefits that we offer is a minimum of a 30-day stay with a 30-day notice. So if you were trying to do it yourself, you're most likely renting a property unfurnished for a year and putting
Mm,
in rental furniture until your furniture arrives, or whatever it might be. So just even though we might be more expensive on a monthly basis than doing it yourself like that, the fact that you could do it for 97 days, the exact amount of time that you need. You're not having to take that cost over a full year and divide it over the 97 days. So we will definitely be cheaper than you doing it yourself that way. You're also not having to turn on and off your electric, your cable, your internet, meet the service guy there, where you get the window of, we'll be there on Tuesday. And then maybe the night before, we'll be there between 8 and 12, and then they show up at 12 o'clock and then they spend 2 hours. So they were really there between 8 and 2. So, we've already have all of that stuff set up. So when they come in, it's just a walk-in done and ready to go. We also offer things like grocery packages. So I mean, we do leave a traditional gift when you arrive with some things, but we could do an extensive grocery shopping so that the full refrigerator and pantry completely full with your designated items. And we get that moved in, right before you arrive. So you don't have to go to the grocery store when you first move in. Or we can help set you up with the school. You wanted to check in with this school. Well, let's see what you need to do to what paperwork you need. Do you need a copy of the lease? Do you need a current driver's license in that state? What do you need in order to get registered in that school? Or even some people don't always think about it. Is this particular zone, do I need my dog registered? Some people don't think about that, and then they might be out walking their dog and they don't have the right tag, and suddenly um, they're getting fined for not having, the license on the dog. So just the different things that we know about each one of our locations that as a brand new person coming in trying to do it yourself, you might not even think of that.
yeah, I wouldn't have thought of at least 90% of what you mentioned. So we desperately in this world need people like you
Mhm.
to help. So that's
Yes.
fantastic.
And I
Wh-
really think, you had mentioned about our employees. Every one of our employees has that desire to be a hospitality provider. You have to, because hospitality really is kind of 24 by 7. It's not just, I mean, the majority of what we do is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but sometimes someone will arrive on the weekend or someone will have an emergency come up on the weekend, and we need to be there for them every step of the way. I can't say that we never have something happen in our property. Their homes, they need maintenance and attention. And yes, we try to do all of that before someone arrives. We have 150-point checklist before someone arrives to make sure that, okay, did we touch everything? Did we make sure it was working? But inevitably, we walk out the door and someone walks in, and the highest smoke detector will suddenly start chirping. It wasn't chirping when we were there, or and we just changed the batteries X amount of time ago, but you never know what happens. But the important thing is that we're there. We will be right back, and we will get it fixed and make it right, as quickly as possible.
Well, what I'm taking away from this conversation, and I hope other people are taking this away as well that are listening. When I first thought of this topic in terms of just corporate relocation in general, mistakenly just thought it was maybe more transactional, right? It's like, okay, I need a place. I sign something, I sign the lease or whatever it is, and then 3 weeks or 3 months later, here I am arriving, and now I've got to figure everything else. But it sounds to me like you guys are, that's part of it, but almost two other parts would be your property management effectively, right? You're managing all
Yeah.
the aspects of that property. And the word that keeps coming up in my head is concierge. It's like, we go to a hotel, we want to be able to reach out to somebody and have them be like the local expert and where do we go and what do we need? And it sounds like you guys are really operating at that concierge level in the relocation space.
Absolutely. In order to be successful in our industry, you have to be able to provide that. Because if you're working with a very large corporation in the area, and you don't provide that service, they're going to look for someone who does. And if you do provide that service and it goes very smoothly and the transferees are very happy, they're going to come back to you and they're going to continue to use you. And that's our job, right? We don't want to lose a client over a mishap of something that had gone wrong. And the other thing is, from the corporation's perspective, they're not just relocating one person. So they're not going to go out and just look on Zillow or, look somewhere to find one property. They want a company that has enough property to be able to fully manage their needs for the full year. Whether they're going to do, a couple hundred transferees or whatever it might be. So partnering with a company like ours gives your property the best advantage because you're going to get the largest corporations booking into your property. And, nobody's going to do anything to their corporate apartment that will make them get disciplined at work. So from a wear and tear perspective, it's a lot less wear and tear than you would find from a nightly Airbnb. Maybe people are partying in your property, or even on the long-term unfurnished. My husband and I, we had long-term unfurnished properties, and every time someone moved out, it was like, well, here's the checklist. Do I need to replace the carpet? Do I have to paint? Did they take all the closet doors off the wall? Did they break all the blinds? I just had a laundry list of everything we had to go through anytime somebody moved out. And it was usually at least a month's worth of rent of stuff I had to repair
Yeah.
just to get it ready to go for the next tenant. Whereas, we've had properties, where everything in there could look brand new for 5 years because the use on it is much less. And because it's not nightly Airbnbs, and most of the people who are transferees are homeowners somewhere else. They know, you know, that toilet is running. I can hear that running. Let me call and have maintenance come and fix that. They're doing the things necessary to keep the home maintained, even when we're not in it. They're in it instead. And they can be our eyes and ears too, which again keeps your property top notch.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I've got two more questions for you. One is, you've talked about corporations, and so one of the things that I might be making an assumption about in terms of your business, and I don't want to make an assumption, is, this is only for big companies. Okay. So
Oh,
in
sure.
terms of the types of businesses that you serve, what's the smallest? I mean, I assume
Yeah.
there's no end on the upside, but like, what's the smallest, or maybe what's a typical company that
Yeah.
you serve?
It could be all the way down to a very small corporation. It doesn't have a bottom limit. I mean, they may only need us once, or they may only need us a handful of times. Unlike, a large corporation that might be talking to us daily. But they're still just as valuable to us as large corporations. So we're open and welcome to it all. And sometimes, we work with um, people who are displaced because of insurance claims. So maybe the insurance company is going to pay for it, but they had a flood in their house, or they had a fire, or whatever it might be, and we can help provide them with similar type property because insurance pays like for like. So their response, if you had a home, you get a home. So we can provide those as well. It could also be, we do also on occasion have grandparents come in, and their first grandchild or third grandchild or whatever it is being born, and they love them. but they don't want to sleep there at night. They don't want to be up for the midnight feedings. They want to go home to their own property and be able
Yep.
to come fresh in the morning and be that extra hand that's needed. So
I love you, but
there
not
could be
that
many
much.
reasons. Yes, exactly. Um,
Well, thanks. First off, thanks for bringing up the whole concept of like fire being displaced because, yeah, I mean, if you think of just corporate relocation as I'm moving from one place to another place, probably another state away or multiple states away, that's one scenario. But I'm again, I'm in the Texas area, and our business is in this primarily in the South Houston area, which is right on the Gulf. You got hurricanes coming and going, and so I've known folks that have lost their house due to flood. I've known even in the North Texas area, folks that have had a fire, and yeah, that
yeah,
seems like it takes a while to go through insurance and then have a home rebuilt if that's how you're doing it.
yeah, it does.
So that just
Again,
treating it that way is also great.
a very stressful environment, right? You
Yep.
obviously just lost everything in a matter of a second, and you want someone to be able to handle all those details and get you back up and running again so that you can go to work. So you don't have to think about, how do I get my kids back in school? Is this house going to be close enough so that I'm not driving 30 minutes to bring them to school and then having to go another 45 back to work?
Yeah.
How do we make it as seamless as possible in such a terrible situation?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you guys are doing a great service out there, so thank you. So my last question is, so we talked earlier about who are the folks that you serve, and you really have two primary parties that you're serving. One is the companies, and the other is the somebody out there that might be like, hey, I want to use my house for this service versus doing an Airbnb or VRBO, et cetera. And so if somebody wanted to get a hold of you guys, your firm, Avenue West, for either one of those scenarios, what do they do?
Yeah. So our probably the best place to start is our website, avenuewest.com. Depending on, where your property is located or where your company is located, you could either just do a general request or you could drill down specifically to a city where we have a franchisee. And but if you are in an area where we don't necessarily have a franchisee, that's okay. We still want to talk to you and see what we can offer you.
Okay, and it sounds like you also have franchisees that you'd be
Yes.
interested in talking to. So if somebody was interested in that type of investment opportunity where maybe you weren't in a specific city that they're in, I assume they can go to avenuewest.com and probably see opportunities for that as well.
Yes, they can.
Okay. Well, Angela, I've enjoyed this. I've learned a whole bunch just in the short time that we've talked. So really appreciate you being on the show today and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for the
Awesome.
opportunity to meet to speak with you.
You're absolutely welcome, and thanks for just sharing how you're solving this problem of corporate relocation. So for everybody else that's listening, thank you for listening, and we will see you again next week.
There is a Solution for That is produced by VARC Solutions. This episode was produced by Ashley White and Aaron Riley. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch the video version on youtube.com/There's a Solution for That. Or visit varcsolutions.com/podcast, where you'll find our entire podcast archive, as well as show notes, links to solution providers, and complete transcripts of every episode. If you love the podcast, please leave a review with your comments.